There we are. You may have to hold it and point it, okay?
So you want it on the screen, obviously?
Yeah, if you don't mind. Well, yeah, whatever. Okay, right. Preparation
For 3
and
hours.
problems cleaning up. Good evening. Sorry for the slight technical hitch. And you thought this was going to be about uncapping. One of the problems that I've banged on about for years is that the poor beginners, we drag them in, we teach them about bees and beekeeping, then we set them out into the great world, and we never talk to them about actually handling honey. And this is one of these things that is, no, don't worry about that, let's keep it on.
Right.
Okay. One of the problems is we don't really talk to you about how to handle honey and wax. And it's one of my pet hate things. Anyway, right, now, helps if you actually start with the display properly. Go present to next. Go to the slide. Do it properly. I don't believe this. Right, okay, here we go. Right, clearing up. Right, my honey room, etc. Yes, it has a lot of very expensive and large equipment. All right, anybody who knows me knows this. And what I don't want this to be about is I've got bigger gear than you, so therefore I'm better at it. Okay, however, this is, however, I can do better than you because of item 1. My only advantage is I can potentially make a bigger mess than you, and more quickly. All right, so, next slide. Right, credentials and related stuff. So, how much honey do you think I handle each year?
300 grams.
300.
2 tons.
Nearly. Slightly down from there. Go on, anybody else? 1.5 tons of honey a year. Okay? In the last few years, I've done 1.5 tons a year. Half a ton of that is my own, okay, and the other ton belongs to Jack Wilford, and he's subcontracted to me on a number of occasions. Now, slightly obviously, this is a volume that makes a lot of sticky, and trust me, it does make a really sticky mess. And when you get to that kind of volume, you really start to understand what you're doing. Okay? Okay. Have I got the job? I'll pass the audition. Am I okay to talk about this? Right. Things I've learnt on the way. First of all, plan out what you intend to do in detail. How many of us, me included, over the years, have got up in the morning and thought, right, extraction day today, out to your honey room, stroke kitchen, garage, outhouse, and you've not thought about it. And you're walking, basically, and potentially, into a real mess. Okay? So, go. Right. Have a disaster recovery plan. Now, what do I mean by disaster plan? Okay? You're working away and you need something, and it's in the kitchen. And your fingers sort of holding the honey back on the honey tap, etc. We'll talk about that in a minute. So you do need to think about what you're going to actually do when something goes wrong. All right? And if you think it won't go wrong, I've got news for you. Right. The other thing I've discovered is how to be really quick at processing. Okay? Speed is everything, especially when you're doing this kind of volume, because you'd start to lose the will to live. Avoid spills. It's messy. Have any of you ever spilt a large quantity of honey? We'll forgive you over there, you haven't yet. You're not a proper beekeeper till you've done it. Who's ever spilt a lot of honey? Come on, admit it.
Small amounts.
Small amount?
Yeah, I've done small amounts.
Small amount?
Yeah.
Until you're up to your kneecaps in it, you can't say you've done it properly. Adrian Wilford tells this wonderful story about he was in the house where he used to live in Morton, and it was in the early days. Had this nice big table, and he had his bottling tank on a box, and he had his jars, and he was ready to go. So he climbed up on a chair, and he's got a big bucket. And I don't mean a little bucket, I mean a big bucket, and he pours it into the bottling tank, which is basically, you know, something like this. I'll show you that like that one there. And he pours it in, and he turns around and he picks up the next one, and he pours it in, and he picked up the next one. He thought, not much honey in that tank. Oh, do you know what he did?
Left the
He
tap
hadn't
open.
closed the honey gate. And by now, there's about £100 of honey flowing out across his beautiful kitchen table, over the edge like Niagara Falls, onto the floor and through the gaps in the floor. So, you know, you must double check everything. Check your honey tap is closed, whatever, because trust me, you will one day leave one open. Hands up all those people who've left one open. No. If you say no, you're telling lies. Right, the other thing I've learned is how to clean up. All right, cleaning is really, really difficult. Okay, right, cleaning up, sort of. All right, now years and years ago, I wrote a whole series of technical handbooks for a computer company, and it was revolutionary at the time because I wrote it backwards. I started with, this is how you actually use it, not all the technical stuff. If you want to find out more about this, turn to page 750. And since then, lots of people have used the same technique, apparently. You know, like a quick start guide, they call it now. Okay, firstly, how do you keep clean? All right? Anybody starting to get a picture of where I'm going on this? How many people have failed to keep clean when they've been doing their extraction? You've managed to keep clean?
No.
You obviously haven't got enough honey.
I get sticky.
You get sticky.
Yeah,
Oh
very
yeah.
sticky.
You know the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where it goes about you wouldn't believe how big the universe is. I mean, space is, it's like really big. You know. Well, honey is really sticky if you haven't ever noticed. Okay. Now this is, you know, slightly extreme. One way of keeping yourself clean. You know, sort of full biohazard chemhaz suit. You know, that would work. Keeps the honey off you, doesn't it? That's a bit better, you know, just a sort of standard sort of respirator, nitrile gloves, overalls, nice boots, etc. It's looking a bit better, is it? Okay. This is probably a bit more realistic. You know, you don't really need the oxygen and the respirator, but, you know, that's looking quite good. Personally, this is what I use. Good. Right. Now, I use hospital scrubs. I kid you not. It's incredibly useful. The lab coat. Have a lab coat. Keeps worse of the stuff off you. And hospital scrubs. You know, you can pretend to be George Clooney or whatever. And they're really cheap. They're about 14 quid a pair. You can drop them in the washing machine. You know. They have it, and as I said, you know, the stethoscope's really useful if you want to do a bit of, you know, private surgery or something on the kitchen table. It gives you that sort of authenticity, or, you know, a bit of role play or whatever. Anyway, also get yourself a scrub hat. I have a scrub hat somewhere here. There we are. My wife made it for me during lockdown. She was making loads of them for other people, you see. So I wear that, and the theory is it keeps my hair from dropping in the honey. But more importantly, it's when I'm, you know, uncapping, you know, like, honey in the hair, you know, and what a mess. Keeps that part of it clean. And then nitrile gloves, very useful. You know, you can once again pretend you're in an episode of ER. You come to the end of doing a bit, and you can rip, chuck them in the bin, and walk out. You know, as I say, it gives you a bit of extra fun. I also keep a pair of clogs, specifically, mine's slightly smaller than that. I keep those in particular for the honey room. and I wash those on a regular basis, because what happens is you get honey stuck on the bottom, and then you sort of nip into the kitchen, and, oh dear, and you know, come out again. So that's about keeping clean. Clean. Yeah, okay. So far it's about keeping yourself clean. Alright? It sounds silly, but it's important. I was watching that guy, Lawrence Edwards from Black Mountain Honey. You've probably seen his videos. And there he is standing in his honey room. He's got his fleece on. He has got a nice plastic mop hat thing on. And he's standing there saying, and I always make sure I've got clean clothes on before I go in. I'm sure they're clean. There's no criticism of that. But, you know, he's got his ordinary clothes on, which are going to get plastered in honey. Okay? So, basically, as I said, it'll help keep your production hygiene standards up. This isn't a talk about hygiene standards. This is about keeping yourself clean and cleaning up. But it will solve that problem. Okay, so when you're finished, I'm not demonstrating this bit, you can just drop your scrubs in the washing machine, and with luck, you won't spread any honey about. Please note I've put with luck. My wife says there's no chance. Okay? She really says that there's no chance. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, she says she can find honey smeared everywhere in the house. In fact, I was once extracting some heather up in Adrian's honey room, and she phoned me up to say I found honey on the staircase going upstairs, and I wasn't even in the house. Okay, she does give a very good talk about the trials and tribulations of the beekeeper's wife. If you know, please do feel free to contact her if you want to hear it. She gives talks at WIs and stuff like that. If I'm lucky, I get out alive. Right, the honey room. Dun dun dun. Right, now most people. I use my garage. Some people use the kitchen. All right. And basically, what you want to do before you start is clean it and put down a protective surface. Now, somewhere here I have a protective surface. I'll come to the protective surface in a moment. I'll pass this round. Okay, so, sorry, this machine is being very slow. There we are. My honey room is my garage. Okay? For my 70th, my wife did offer to have the whole thing carcassed out and lined with plastic hygiene board, etc. But I'm glad I didn't, because it's doubled in size, my honey room, since she offered me that. But what I do is something different. I line it with polythene sheeting. All right? It's about 500 gauge, you can pass it round. It's good thick stuff. And basically I've got a wooden frame and I staple it to the walls and hang it down. I stick it with gaffer tape, to join pieces together. And it goes all the way around, makes doors and all this kind of thing. And it's really good. That's slightly sticky because I cut it off the ceiling, off the wall earlier today, because I'm just about to rip it down and put more up. And I buy it, it's a company called, I can't remember, but I'll tell you another day, who supply this stuff in rolls, handy rolls, and they basically supply it normally for builders for dust suppression when they put a wall up there and knock down next door and keeps you clean. And on the floor, I line it with this, comes from the same company. This is actually washable up to a point. And this is like a paper or card. You pass it round. And it comes in sort of 50 or 100 metre rolls. I have a big roll of it hanging in my honey room, and I pull down a big sheet of it and cut it off and lay it out on the floor. Okay? And I stick that down with tape, and that gives me a nice clean floor. No dust, no crap coming up, anything like that. And then if I spill honey, if it's only a small bit, I can just wipe it off with a damp cloth. Or if I've had a really good session, I just fold it up, put it in the bin. Simple, okay? And it's not that expensive. But anyway, so let's keep going. Oh, yes, simply put, mine's a serial killer's playroom. This was explained to me by my son, who's a police officer. He just looked at it and he went, his beekeeper's one. He went, Dad, this is a serial killer's playroom. I said, I know. Anyway, so, I don't know if you like Scandi Noir, but that's it. But honestly, this is exactly what it is. It's a serial killer's playroom. And it's great because you can splash honey this way and that way on the ceiling, on the floor. And you can clear it all up really quickly without having to use lots of water and stuff. Right, let's move on. Moving and storing honey, my favourite subject. Right. Oh. Okay. Now, storing it. How do you store your honey? Well, back 40-something years ago, they used to sell big tins. You used to put your honey in and hammer the lid down, and they were literally like big giant coffee tins. Do you remember these? You do? They were rubbish. Anyway, these days we use plastic buckets. Okay, come on, go. Why won't you move on to the next one? There we go. Right, plastic buckets. I recommend the 11-litre size, all right? That holds about 30 pounds of honey or 12.5 kilos, okay? Why that size? Well, I'm getting older. And I find that about a 30-pound bucket is all I want to hold. You can get 16-litre buckets, and you can get 26-litre buckets, which weigh about 50-something pounds. Have you ever lifted a big, heavy bucket? You know, those bigger ones. When it's full of honey, I'll tell you what, you can half do your back in. And this is sort of a warning. Bigger always looks better value because you're getting more storage for your money. All right? But you do have to lift them. All right? You do have to lift them. And trust me, unless you eat a lot of Weetabix and you've got good strong back, don't ever lean over and do that. All right? You're going to put your back out. So 30 pounds is a nice, convenient size. That's about that size. All right? That is about that size. And that's a reasonable size, I think, to handle. They also stack nicely. Right. Use good ones. Cheap ones will split. Okay? Anybody ever had a honey bucket split? Oh, you have? Yeah. There's a guy over at Kirby Grindlive called Mark Pennington who his commercial keeper tells this lovely story of he took a huge honey bucket out of store, put it in the warming cabinet, switched it on, came back 2 days later, opened the door, and it was like one of those disaster movies, flood of honey, came straight out, because it had a split at the bottom, but it didn't matter at the time, at first, because of course it was oilseed and it had set solid like concrete. But when he warmed it, it was now liquid, and it just, honestly. Now, this is a cheap and nasty bucket. Please take it, have it pass it round. It's made of styrene. It's not made of polypropylene or anything else. Any chemists here know about plastics? No? Oh, anyway, that's cheap and nasty, and it will shatter. Now, honestly, it's rubbish, and it was cheap. And it just came my way. So.
How do you know?
Sorry?
How do you know it's what it's made of?
It'll split if you hit it. So it's probably made of styrene.
It's a shock.
Yeah, no, honestly, I've used them. I've come across that type on many occasions, and generally speaking, they're absolutely awful. The best ones are the ones you get from TD Online, Taylor Davis Online. They are really good quality, made in Germany by a company called Yoki. And they're not actually that expensive. You can keep it if you want it. Sorry?
So what would be the price difference? So you say that that's a cheap one?
Well, that's probably £1.50, and I think the Jockey ones are about £2.10. But you'll get more use out of them. That's what I'm saying. And if you try doing what most of us do at some point, we'll come on to honey gates in a second. That would shatter. I know. I went through about 6 of those. Keep it. Use it as a waste paper bin. I went through about 6 of those, trying to cut holes in it to make a bucket, you know, a bottling one for somebody. And because it was thin, cheap plastic, it just went everywhere. Right, moving honey from extractor, etc., to the next stage. Right, you could use an old plastic bucket. All right, fair enough. You've got some there. You've washed it. It's clean. It's all right. Yeah. I think that's seriously dangerous because when you've got warm honey in them, they can boom, 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 and wobble. They really do wobble. And it's a problem waiting to happen. I think some of you may have seen the video of me climbing up a ladder, pouring honey into something like that. So don't be tempted to use ones which are too big, hence heavy, because there is nothing more scary than 50 litres of warm honey that you're trying to pour into a filter high up, into a big tank or something like this. I like the way you keep nodding. It's really good. You've done it, haven't you? Yeah, exactly. Right, stainless steel bucket. Look at that. Oh, it's stainless. And it cost a huge amount of money. And would you like to tell me how much that cost?
£10.
I think it was £10 or £11. Yeah. Off eBay, exactly the same ones as you get from Thorns, who charge you about 50% more. Alright? It's stainless steel. You put the honey in there, you pick it up, it doesn't wobble, you pour it, you use a nice big scraper to scrape it out, and it's going to keep going. That plastic one, you might get to use it 4 or 5 times, and it will split. This one won't leak. The other advantage of this is, it doesn't matter how dirty it gets, you can steam it out. Use a wallpaper stripper steamer, hose it out with a steamer. You can scrub it with like a Brillo pad thing, one of those stainless steel scourers. You can sterilise it. Honestly, I've got several of those, and they're really good value. Pass it round. Okay, 11 quid. That's 2 jars of honey you've just spent. Right? Think how much a jar of honey is worth. All right? How much do you sell your honey for? I sell ordinary honey for £6.50 a pound, so even allowing for bottling, that's only 2 jars of honey. And that's one of the things that I want to get through to you. Think about what things are really costing you. Right, not that expensive. Okay, it's very safe, easy to clean, and pumping honey. Oh, pumping honey. I think I left the thing behind. Pumping honey. Have you heard about pumping honey?
No.
Oh, right. We'll come on to cost in a minute. This is a 40mm pipe, right? It's reinforced with spring steel. And you have a big pump which pumps honey around. It's brilliant! Don't ask how expensive it is, but honestly, it's revolutionised my life. I don't lift heavy buckets anymore. If I put hot honey down low, I put a pump and I pump it up high into the next tank. All right? That's just a little piece of this. It's quite expensive. It's an offcut. But then that suddenly involves you in having to use things like connectors like this, which are connectors like this, which are once again pure stainless steel.
The boat. It is.
And you have sort of like, you've seen this kind of thing in the dairy industry.
How many jars of honey is that then?
That's that's about 140 quid. I will tell you that. I've got a lot of it. Yeah, this is an expensive pastime. Pumping honey is fabulous, but trust me, we won't talk anymore about that. My wife might see this. Right, cleaning up.
Can I just ask one question? How long do you normally keep the honey in those containers?
What, in
The plastic ones or the metal ones or whatever?
the buckets?
Yeah, the buckets.
What, the stainless bucket away?
Yeah, how long? Do you normally keep it for a month or?
Oh, thank you.
Or
No,
can
the
it be a
plastic-
year or?
Oh no, the plastic bucket is literally for moving it from extractor to a tank.
Oh right, okay.
I
You don't store it in there then?
Oh God, no. No, if you're going to do that, you want to buy yourself sort of like a 45, 200 litre, no, big more than that, isn't it? A 45 gallon oil drum stainless steel
Right, okay.
plastic liner. No, even I'm not enough on it. Right, use warm, not hot water for cleaning up after yourself. Okay? The problem is that there's always wax in honey, and it tends to sort of spread itself over everything. And the moment you use hot water, yeah, the honey moves, but the wax sort of goes, because it only has to be at 60 degrees, and it spreads out over the surface. And then you've got real problems, okay? Now, use an alkaline food-grade detergent, okay? Now, most of you have never heard of this stuff, have you? called multifoam. I'm the only person who uses it. Well, actually, Adrian uses it. I think I gave Kay some. This is brilliant. This is hugely expensive. £4 a litre. Okay? Sorry, that's not £4 for this litre. That's £4 for the undiluted litre. You use about that much, so you dilute it about 1 to 20. So, you know, for £4, that's less than a jar of honey. That will keep most of you going for the whole year. Now, it is high alkaline. It's not like caustic soda, but it is alkaline as opposed to acid. It's a food grade one. And basically, this one's empty. Comes from a company called ChemSafe in Doncaster. It took me about 6 months to track down a company who could make it for me. And basically, you just spray it on, and it foams very slightly. You leave it, and it's good for plastic. It's good on stainless steel. You spray it on, and it virtually denatures, eats any wax, honey, propolis. It's brilliant on propolis, by the way. You know, on plastic hides you can spray it on. Anyway, and then you just wash it away.
Is it septic tank safe?
I wouldn't like to suggest that. I wouldn't, having had a septic tank, I wouldn't personally.
Strong outflows aren't.
Sorry?
Strong outflows don't mix very well.
No, they don't. No, just pour it into your outdoor soak away.
Into the neighbour's garden.
Neighbour's garden, something like that. Yeah. No, I know where you're coming from, having lived with septic tanks for years, but it's actually, I mean, you could spray it on your hand, and it actually wouldn't, you know, it doesn't actually do much once it's mixed. So with plenty of water, it should be okay. God, I'm covered in honey already. Okay, the problem is that if you use washing up liquid, it tends to foam, and you use vast amounts of water. You can get away with this stuff with cold water.
Is that good for wax as well as honey?
Yeah, that's what I use on all my stainless stuff. Everything. And I also use it on plastic. You just spray it on. I buy a huge batch of this every year. And if anybody wants any, talk to me, and you can have it at the same price I get it from. As I said, I just get it from Doncaster, and these guys are very helpful, and they'll sell it to me in litre, 5 litre containers or whatever. But it's only about £4 a litre in its neat form. Okay? So, let's move on. I also you have a food grade hose and spray. So, I put it into the tanks, leave it for about 30 minutes for it to go, and I just wash it all out with cold water or slightly warm water if I connect to the warm outlet. And I just wash it out and it comes up nice and clean. Okay? Right, what else have I done? Equipment and methods. Now, use whatever you have. This is the very stainless steel roasting pan that I used 50 years ago, made in Sweden by a company called Tala. It was very good, and I've still got it. Anyway, got a large one and 2 small ones. Brilliant. Cleans up lovely. That's what I used to use with a bread knife. I didn't bring the knife in case anybody picked me up and read my food going, I'm a serial killer and got the wrong idea. Anyway, I also have 2 freezers. That's a good way of finding out in a murder mystery who the serial killer is. They always have at least 2 freezers. All right, that's where they hide the bodies. Anyway, that's what I used. That and a bread knife to uncut my first ever honey. So this isn't about having Gucci gear. It's about thinking how you're going to do stuff. All right. So think about what you're about to embark on. And think about how you're going to get it right. Now, I do have a preference for stainless steel. It tends to outlast it. This roasting tray has lasted 40, 50 years so far. And I use it pretty much every week. Plus, I did the honey in it. But that's quite good. I keep saying to this thing about consider how it can go wrong. Anybody here want to admit anything before I put the next slides up? I say admit anything, want to share. I always used to love it when you used to go to training days, and the guy would sit on the end. Look, this is going to be a workshop, and we're going to talk about what we do. And that basically meant he hadn't actually prepared it, so he was asking you to run it for him. But anyway, before I sit on the edge of the table, is there anything anybody would like to share with me about their personal problems with honey? No?
No, the only thing I'd like to share is don't use old plastic buckets.
You've done it.
I've done it.
And what happened?
It's full.
Thank you. I'll pay you for that later, Simon. Thank you so much. Right. It started like this. These are photographs that have been given to me by a member. And this was first year extracting of honey, and it was a problem. So, would anybody like to tell me what's wrong with this picture, first of all?
He's doing it on the floor.
Sorry?
He's doing it on the floor.
Oh, that's all right. Most people have extractors that stand on the floor.
Yeah, okay, how'd you get your bucket under it?
Ah, nice one. Yeah, the problem here was that the legs were too short and you couldn't get a bucket under it, okay? Then the person discovered, and I think they were very, very kind to show us these pictures, then discovered it was too heavy to lift single-handed up higher so they could get anything under it, because by now it's got honey up to about there in it, you see. Right? Are you learning something?
Yeah.
Yeah, the rest are going, oh, that would never happen to me. We never did that. That's all right. Okay. Okay. So the beekeeper ended up using small, shallow containers and sort of getting underneath and sort of emptying a bit like this, you see. So they were doing multiple transfers from small containers to big containers. Now, this is not going, no, I didn't do this. We've all done it, all right? We've all made these mistakes. But if you think, I tend to sort of, before I go and do an extraction, even now, I tend to sort of go and close my eyes and rehearse the whole thing in my semi-comatose state. Checking the pinholes on the back of my eyes. I sit and think about it. I rehearse it mentally. Have any of you ever watched Gavin and Stacey? Yeah? You know what I'm going to say, don't you? The turkey going into the oven. Yeah, yeah. And he stands there with his friends. These blokes are standing there, and he's got his oven gloves on, and he's going. No one goes. Yeah. He's worked out how he can do it without moving, so he can get the turkey in one movement. And we laugh, but actually, he managed to get the turkey in one go. Right, problems. Ta-da! Okay. Interesting. It's sitting there looking at you threateningly, isn't it? Yeah. Have you worked it out yet? What the problem is?
No, it's not engaged with the filter.
Yeah. But why? Look. It's stacking up a bit. That look in the kitchen where everything is in a container. You've got a container here and a container there, and you've used the flour sieve, you've used the pasta sieve, and it's starting to look a bit desperate. They obviously blew a frame in this one and that one, but never mind, it happens. Right, why? Any real suggestions? Stuart, you're a man of deep intellect and experience.
Well, I have quite a bit of experience, but not like this.
Not like that, no, all right, then, okay. Right, simply put, the beekeeper attempted to filter thick, cold honey, or cold, thick honey. Honey is a very interesting material. It's thick, and as it warms, it thins, okay? This is ordinary honey. We'll talk about heather honey another day. And the colder it is, the thicker it is. And if you try to put it through a fine sieve, all right, and I mean a fine sieve, it ain't going to go. One very expensive stainless steel sieve, all right? Very expensive. Right, because it fits right on top of my tanks, you see. Anyway, it's not too fine, but I'll tell you what, that one would block just as well as a little nylon one or anything else. The advantage of this one is I've got a big surface area here, and you can just scrape it around a bit and move it. But basically, that honey would have clogged this expensive one just as well as it did the little ones. You know those little ones that you put on top of a tank? Brilliant, yeah. So, yeah, nice filter, but I could block it just as well. So, what I use is one of those. You can pass that round. That's a big one, which fits exactly on top of my big tanks. And that's a little one, which fits on top of a bucket. Both off eBay. I think that was 15 quid, and that was 11 quid. All right, you have one there, have a look.
What's the whole size?
Sorry? Past the sieve size. But it is...
Are they classified as pasta sieves then?
Sorry?
Is that a pasta sieve?
That is a commercial pasta sieve from eBay, made in China, about 14 quid. All right? It's about 14 quid. That is just, in my view, the right gauge to do your first filtering as it comes out the extractor. Okay? I clean it with that spray as well. Spray it on, leave it half an hour, and then wash it off. There's always going to be a bit of wax and stuff stuck to them, but there it is. Okay, so what should they have done? Right, so they really wanted to go from comb to honey, comb to honey ring to bottle in one step. Never going to happen. Okay? It should have been one step, comb to bucket. All right? Get it into a bucket. You can sort out the rest of your problems later. All right? Get it into a bucket. Right. The workaround to get it into the bucket quick, don't even think about going back to this, is to warm it up. Now, if you apparently have unlimited money, which I don't, by the way, I'll talk about how I fund mine later. Serial killers can do that kind of thing. Put a fan heater near it. Adrian uses a fan heater. Lots of people use a fan heater. I happen to have a heated extractor, which basically the whole bottom of my extractor